Hello guys, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Kurin, and today we are going to be going over how I make my perfect sourdough loaf. Quick disclaimer before we get into this, I have only been doing sourdough for about 7 or 8 months now. I am definitely not an expert, but I do feel like I have my loaves down, so let's get into it. I'm going to start off by feeding my sourdough starter. I do 30 grams of starter, 125 grams of filtered water, and then 140 grams of flour. You will know that you have the right consistency of a sourdough starter if your mixture starts to look like a thick pancake mix. I usually just leave my sourdough starter on the counter because it's warm enough in the spring and summertime, but in the cooler months I like to put it either in a cabinet or above the fridge to keep it a little bit warmer, that way it rises better. I fed my starter first thing in the morning so it'd be bubbly and active in the evening time. I plan to do a 48-hour cold ferment in the fridge. I do 9 grams of Icelandic sea salt, 350 grams of warm filtered water, and once again, before adding in my flour, I always like to mix this together just so that everything is very thorough. Then I will go ahead and go in with my flour. I use 500 grams of all-purpose flour. I really love using the brand King Arthur. This is what I use for my starter as well. Always start out with mixing it with my little wooden spatula, but once it gets to this kind of like stringy texture, I will go in and knead the rest of it with my hands. Your dough should be pretty dang sticky, but you should be able to shape it enough to leave it for 30 minutes. So after I'm done mixing it, I will shape it slightly, put saran wrap over it, and then leave it on the counter for 30 minutes. Once those 30 minutes are up, you're just gonna do some classic stretch and folds, get that dough into shape, and then once you're happy with the shape, you're just gonna pop this thing in the fridge and let it sit in there overnight. You can let your dough cold ferment in the fridge for 1 night or 2. I prefer to do 2. Once I pull it out of the fridge, I let it sit on the countertop at room temp until it warms up enough to bake. And once your dough is at room temp, this is when you're going to want to flour your surface, and you're going to pull all of your dough out of the bowl, get it onto the counter, and you are going to start shaping your dough. So first of all, I'm going to start off with some more stretch and folds just to help me get that shape that I'm looking for. And then you're going to see me pulling the dough towards myself. This is to create tension in the loaf, in your dough, so that it holds its shape while you are proofing it. And I like to do this for a pretty good while. Creating tension in the loaf just makes the dough shape so much better, and in turn makes your baked loaf look a lot prettier and more round. And the next step is called proofing. So this is where your dough is going to rise for the last time before sticking it in the oven. I honestly have no idea what this little basket is called, but your dough sits in this little linen basket, and I cover it with another linen top. Wish I could tell you the name of the basket. I don't really know. But I usually let mine sit there for about 30 minutes. Some people do it for an hour before baking, and it will rise just a little bit more. I guess I probably should have told you guys that I preheat my oven for 450 degrees. I also prefer to use unbleached parchment paper. I put my dough in my Dutch oven, and then I get to the scoring process. I don't do anything fancy. Maybe one day I will learn how to do more fancy scoring, but I usually just do one big line across the middle and then a couple more off to the side. And when I bake my loaf, I like to put it in the oven for 30 minutes with the top on. And then once my 30 minutes is up, I will go in and remove the top and continue baking my loaf for another 20 minutes on top of that. After the loaf is done baking, the key is to let it sit and rest. I made that mistake a couple of times. I was so excited to just cut into my sourdough, and it ended up being super gooey on the inside, so it is actually still baking when you take it out of the oven. So let it sit for a couple of hours before you actually cut into it. And guys, this knife right here is a game changer when cutting your loaf. I'm gonna link it down below for you guys if you want to check it out. And here is what my bread turned out like. It is so beautiful, super airy. It had the perfect sour taste. I went ahead and put some butter on it and began eating it right away. I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to be subscribed and I'll see you in the next one.